What's up, everybody? Ross Reviews here, and I'm back at it again with another video. And today, I'm breaking down episode 2 of season 7 of Game of Thrones, Stormborn. Real quick, I thought this was a pretty good episode, and there's a lot to unpack here, so let's just jump right into it. So first things first, I'm real glad that somebody actually remembers the storm that Dany was born in, because for the longest time, nobody seemed to remember it, and it was such a big event that she was named Stormborn, but not a single other person in the realm remembers this storm. You know, it definitely led to a lot of tinfoil theories on Reddit and stuff like that, and, you know, I'll be honest, I kind of subscribe to some of those, but now that Varys confirmed it, that, you know, there was a storm and this and that, we're all good to go. Also, speaking of Varys, I'm glad Dany finally grilled him. However, I was hoping for some more in that conversation where, you know, she would have said something to the effect of, well, you tried to poison me. And he would have said, oh, my dear, don't worry, there was not actually poison in there. I couldn't let you die, so therefore I had to make everyone involved believed that you would be poisoned, and then you would actually have been unharmed. That was an awful Varys impression, but I'm glad I attempted it. I think it was nice. Plus, if he never poisoned the wine but made everybody else believe that he did, I think that would have really paid off for Varys as a character and really kind of spoken to his Targaryen restoration, you know, string pulling and stuff like that. I thought that would have made a nice touch. But, hey, Dan and Dave didn't think so, so... Alright, so after all this time, you know, we finally get Melisandre speaking the actual prophecy. And then Dany goes, well, that's the prince that was promised. And then Missandei, right off the bat, is just like, no, it's actually prince or princess. So there's no gender specificity there. Specificity? No, it's not gender specific. I think it was really cool also to see Melisandre go, well, prophecies are kind of, you know, let's not talk about prophecies, because, you know, we see where those have led her astray before. And I think it's also really cool that she was like, listen, you have a part to play, and so does another Jon Snow. And then that's when Tyrion's just like, yo, really? Like, dude, I know him. That's my boy. And that really plays back to the friendship that they built in Season 1. Especially in the books, it's very, very clear that they like each other and they enjoy each other. So, to see that transition over into the show and not have that timeline get screwed up like they screwed up, you know, Theon, you know, being nice to Tyrion and actually recommending a brothel, and it was Tyrion that was the dickhead. Also, that makes me really excited to see this episode coming up tonight, where Jon and Dany finally meet, and we get to see Jon and Tyrion reunion, because that's always going to be fun. So moving on, we have Cersei in the throne room addressing all the lords, and I think she had brought up some very valid points about, you know, hey, she's got dragons, and, you know, we got to stop this, and, you know, our country and stuff like that. You know, it's always tough to kind of get behind an invader of your own country, regardless of how you feel about the, you know, current power, but you know, I can see why the lords were skeptical, and I see how Cersei was really fighting that uphill battle. And we also get to see some really cool interaction between Jaime and Randall Tarley, who we're led to believe we should hate from last season and how he treated Sam and stuff like that. But then here, he actually makes some very valid points about, like, hey, I'm a Tarley. Like, Tarley is a name that means something, in case you didn't notice. And we're not just going to sit here and break our oaths and, like, stab people at dinner like you people. So I thought that was a really cool piece to his character, and it really honestly made me like him. I know I still feel bad that he was a dickhead to Sam, but I mean, hey, the guy's got morals, and the guy's got a compass, and he's got a moral compass that works pretty well sometimes. And with that scene, I really wished more lords would press her about, like, the whole, like, blowing up the Sept thing, because it seems like the common folk already know it. You know, we'll get to that part with Hot Pie and Arya later on, but you know, it seems like it's a general consensus that everybody else seems to get, like, the Daily Westerosi and gets all these, like, WikiLeaks-style updates about what the hell's going on. Except for our main characters. It's really kind of weird, I'm not gonna lie. So I'm really loving Jim Broadbent's, you know, Archmaester here. He kind of embodies everything about, like, this, like, super high intellectual, where he's just, all he's thinking about is knowledge and books and learning and this and that, and he's always, like, rambling over people, and always, like, he gets so excited, and it reminds me a lot of myself when I start talking about Game of Thrones and stuff like that. I just ramble for 4 hours, and then it's like, oh, I'm sorry, did you mean to say something? Kind of the whole reason I started this channel, so that's a nice little tie-in. Also, feel real bad for Jorah in this situation. The grayscale is like completely covering him, you know, and then we find out that Sam is just like, hey, I can fix that, but I'm gonna have to cut it all off. And that was like such a gross and like, oh, but I loved it. I loved every second of it, and I loved the transition. But I just want to back up real quick, because in the library, when Sam and the Archmaester are talking, you know, he says, oh, I'm not chronicling the wars after the death of King Robert I for, you know, just for it to sit on a shelf. And Sam's just like, well, why don't you name it something a little bit, like, more poetic than that? And it's just like, oh, he wants him to name it A Song of Ice and Fire. I see you, Tarly. I see you. Now we get to the game plan segment of the episode, where, you know, Tyrion is basically like, okay, so this is the plan I've come up with. We're gonna hit here. We're gonna siege these people with the Westerosi, so that way more of the common people are just like, hey, these are our own countrymen. They want to fight for us. They want to liberate us. Great. Let's get behind that. And then they're going to send their more elite forces to take Casterly Rock, which I think is fantastic. And maybe because I try to look into things a little bit more, but when he says, take Casterly Rock, and it, you know, flashes over to Olenna, and she's just kind of like, really? I love that, because it's almost her seeing through Tyrion to just like, no, this isn't about getting Daenerys on the throne. This is about getting revenge on your family. Like, this is you taking Casterly Rock, something that should have rightfully been yours, but Tywin was a dickhead, even though I kind of enjoyed the guy. You know, it really, for that look to happen, and then immediately right after have, you know, Olenna and Dany speaking privately, and she says, don't listen to Tyrion. I think she's really trying to cover her tracks in terms of, you know, the whole Joffrey killing thing and stuff like that. So I think there's some definite interweavings and double crossings and such we got to look out for. And then we get one of the most beautifully shot sex scenes I've ever witnessed. And I think I'm just going to leave it at that and move on. The next scene, we get a very intense scene where Sam is cutting off the grayscale from Jorah, and the pain and the grossness and the... I mean, I said it earlier because I went a little out of order, but man, was this scene brutal. And the transition, phenomenal. I'm loving the transitions, like, as a whole this season. They're always doing something creative, which we haven't seen before, but it really kind of fits this, like, crazy haphazard like style that they're going for to speed everything up. So I really kind of like those. And Arya is still creepy as fuck, dude. Like, I don't know what the hell's going on. I mean, alright, I get it. She's been through a lot of stuff in her life that I've never been through, so I can't really jump in her shoes. But let me tell you, she is just not give a fuck about Hot Pie. Like, that's her friend. So nevertheless, it wouldn't be Game of Thrones if Jon didn't have to make an extremely hard decision for the greater good and basically say, fuck all of you dudes, I'm not listening to you because I have to go do this to save your asses. So, if that's not what Game of Thrones is about, then I don't know what is. Either way, though, all the lords make extremely valid points, bringing up the past, bringing up how we can't trust all these people, and believe me, they all bring up valid points, and Jon's just like, yeah, I thought of all that. I've had these notes for a little while now. I've thought of all of this. So, you don't think that I'm coming into this making the hardest decision I have to make without thinking about stuff like that. But he handles it well. He lets them vent and then really kind of reins them back in. Again, we see Sansa challenging his decisions, which in this time, I'll let it go. Because in reality, that's a big thing to blindside her with. Just as, like, they had the conversation privately, and Jon didn't say what he was going to do. Now he comes into this meeting, and he kind of blindsides her with that. And, you know, I can understand her frustration. Now, she stops when he's like, hey, I'm leaving the North in your hands. And a lot of people were pissed about that. Just like, oh yeah, she's just going to shut up now that she got the power and yada yada. Well, listen, bud, let me tell you about that. Because now all the Northern Lords are looking to her just like, can you, like, basically thinking in their minds, like, is she going to be able to handle this? Like, can she take orders from our king? You know, this and that. And she just immediately like, okay then, if that's how you've thought about this, you've got the plan. I will hold Winterfell. You go do what you need to do, but make sure you get your ass back here. Now, I completely understand where she's coming from because she needs to appear strong to the North. She needs to appear that it's not only Jon that can make decisions around here, and that Sansa really is a true Stark in terms of that inner strength and that basically the charisma that the rest of the Starks had. You know, I think this is going to be a great time for Sansa to really shine in terms of a leader, and I think there's going to be some interesting and odd dealings that are going to go on while Jon's away, and who knows, maybe this is the downfall of Littlefinger. We don't know. So Littlefinger's being a dickbag here, and he's, you know, kind of laying into Jon, saying like, oh, everybody trusts you, and except for Cat. Cat didn't like you at all, and like this and that. So, you know, then he brings up Sansa and how he loves her, and, you know, that's when Jon channels his inner Uncle Ned and just chokes the shit out of him, just like we saw in Season 1. So we'll see how that all plays out. Maybe Jon will come out victorious instead of, you know, beheaded. And then we get the long-awaited reunion between Arya and Nymeria. And it was really, really quick. It was kind of hard to take it all in. But Arya was at first sad that, you know, Nymeria didn't want to join her. But then she realized that at this point she's just a wild animal. I mean, she's been on her own for how long now? So, you know, she kind of understands. And, you know, that's kind of nice to know. So the whole build-up to the naval battle is kind of fucked. Like, the Sand Snakes are just bitching at each other, and they try to make jokes, but they're really not all that funny. But even if they are funny, or they were good jokes, I didn't understand them, so don't hold me accountable for that. But then the worst part is yet to come, when Yara and Ilaria are flirting a bit, and Ilaria goes over to Yara and gets all up on her, and spreads her legs, and, you know, is like, oh, there's a foreign invasion, and it's like, fucking foreign invasion! I can't with this fucking dialogue, man. I'm so glad they're dead. Alright, so then Euron comes crashing in, and, you know, everyone runs up on deck, and we see these fireballs being flung from God knows where, and then all of a sudden you just see the ship coming out of the fog. You know, she's like, oh my god, it's Euron, and it's just like, he comes in, they fucking, you know, the bottom of the boat latches in there, and then Euron's on top of this little boarding deck thing. He's screaming, BAM! Crushes the dude. He comes off screaming like a mad banshee and just starts fucking killing motherfuckers. Let me tell you, that was fucking awesome. We've seen Euron talk the talk, but now we've seen him walk the walk. We've also seen him stalk the stalk, which I'm pretty cool with. Either way, guys, this was a great way to end this episode. And then, through the way they're fighting and all that, he gets the first Sand Snake and stabs her up because, you know, she uses the spear, so of course, you know, she's going to get stabbed. And then the other one comes over, and let me tell you, if you're not a Belmont, don't bring a whip to a sword fight. That's just don't do it. If you're not a Belmont, don't do it. And so, of course, she gets choked out by the whip. Very, very fitting deaths. Glorious, great. I'm sorry. And I want to clarify real quick. I think the actresses that they hired were phenomenal, were great, most of them. 2 out of the 3 were great choices, and I was really excited. You know, Obara, she was in The Almighty Johnsons, which is a great show. If you guys haven't checked it out, it's a Kiwi show about Norse gods and stuff like that. I'll plug it another time. And the other one there, she was in The Iron Fist, and she was like one of the only good things about that entire show. And, you know, we see her in The Force Awakens. She's a pilot. That was pretty cool. I was really excited to see where this was going to go. And then D&D just took one of the coolest plots from the book and just, well, they murdered it, to be frank. My hatred for the Dornish plot is more about D&D than it is, you know, the actresses and the actors and all that people that really fleshed it out. My problem's with the writing, not with the actual people, so we'll just keep going. So Yara and Euron are finally fighting, and she's holding up with him. You know, we've seen him just slaughtering dudes, and she's actually holding her own with it. Maybe he was toying with her just so he could capture her, but we'll see what happens. So when he's got her and he calls little Theon, and he looks over, and the way he looks over, I knew right from that, I was just like, oh no. he's going to start getting flashbacks. And sure enough, he did. You know, the PTSD that he's got from being with Ramsey, you know, and being Reek really took back over. And it was sad to see. And I know a lot of people on the internet were like, I want, you know, Theon Greyjoy to let me down in my grave so he can let me down one more time when I die. And it's like, yo, if you don't have PTSD, you know, I know I don't. So again, this might be a mute point to you, whatever. But you don't understand like the full aspect of what it brings you and all that stuff. So, you know, I really feel bad for Yara that, you know, she was hoping that her brother was going to save her, but he didn't. He just jumped overboard. But at the same time, man, I can kind of see where Theon was coming from, and, you know, snapping back into Reek. You see him when he starts twitching again, and yeah, I really felt bad. But then Euron just lets out this maniacal laugh, like akin to like Mark Hamill's Joker, and I'm just like, I fucking love that guy. I'm sorry to say it, but Euron's pretty dope. I really want to see Pylo in more roles. I hope that this really launches his career in America and, you know, gets him into more like American films and stuff like that. Because, I mean, from what I've seen here, he's done a fantastic job, and I've heard that he does great on some Icelandic dramas and Scandinavian shows, you know, in the market that he started in. So I really want to check some of those out, and I'll report back. Anyway, guys, this was a pretty good episode. You know, it was pretty middle of the road for a second episode. You know, we got a lot of good content and a lot of stuff we needed to digest, but I think tonight's really where it's going to start to kick off. Well, anyway, guys, this has been my review on Episode 2, Stormborn, of Season 7 of Game of Thrones. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Hit me up down in the comments below. Let me know what you thought. What were your favorite aspects and stuff like that? I love to know it, and I'll try to reply as much as I can. Anyway, guys, if you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and that little bell notification, so that way you get all of my content notified to you as soon as it drops to your favorite mobile device. And until then, guys, Rosso, signing off.